My name is Michael Fisher. I'm 22 years old and I'm in the first year of my master's degree at the New England Conservatory here in Boston. I'm a violinist and I have been my entire life. That, entails a lot of performing, whether that be in the solo field or orchestra or chamber music. I love to teach, so I have, I've been managing a private studio for many years now. Both of my parents are musicians. I grew up with music. Music was always in my house, and it was just always something that I loved and enjoyed. I always heard it with my parents. It was a pretty natural thing for me to gravitate towards, especially as a young kid. My dad tried very hard to get me to be a drummer. There are so many baby pictures of me with like these little toy drums or like having a hand drum that he had me like sitting up on his lap and I'm just banging away at the thing. Metal bowls and wooden spoons, I'd just be clanking them together like all hours of the day. And when I was 3.5, he showed me one of the live performances, on VHS at the time, of Ants Marching. And Ants Marching features an electric violinist named Boyd Tinsley. And I just thought he was the coolest thing on earth. And I became obsessed. And I told my parents then and there that I wanted to play the violin. And that's what ultimately led me to start taking violin lessons when I was about 4.5. I practiced, your average amount. I was definitely encouraged to do so. When I was 10, I made the switch to the teacher I would stay with for the rest of my, through high school. His name is Jim Lyon. He's on the faculty at Penn State University, near where I grew up in Pennsylvania. And he was my first taste of, okay, this is what music can be. So I started wanting to compete, in these local competitions, being very competitive. That was a very big motivation for me at the time. But it wasn't until I was 16 that I really became serious. My high school orchestra director, Matt Radspinner, he was like, hey Mike, there's this program that I think you should try out for. I said, okay. I didn't ask what it was. I didn't know what it was about. I just knew it was attached to Carnegie Hall, so I said, okay. Fast forward to, I guess it was probably about March or April, I got my acceptance letter. And I'll never forget reading, NYO-USA 2019 European tour. I started sobbing because I had no idea what I'd gotten myself into. I went away, we had an incredible tour through Europe. It truly changed my life. Before, and maybe I was practicing like 6 to 10 hours a week. The week I got home, I decided I wanted to practice 4 hours minimum a day. It was pretty night and day. I have to talk about Jim, my teacher. He made it absolutely clear that I had potential, and if I would decide to commit, I could go do whatever I wanted. I am so grateful that he and my parents alike allowed me to grow up as a normal kid for the most part. I got to, be a kid. I got to play sports. I got to hang out with my friends and go to football games. Matthew Radspinner, he was my high school orchestra director. He gave me every opportunity he possibly could to thrive and to actually get out of Williamsport. I honestly don't believe that I would have even gone into music in some ways. I think I would have chickened out. One of the coolest experiences that I've had in my entire life was taking Strauss's Ein Heldenleben. It's the biggest concertmaster solo in the repertoire. Getting to perform that on tour through South Africa with Benjamin Zander's Boston Philharmonic Youth Orchestra. I think it's probably, again, one of the bigger defining moments of my career. It really pushed me to figure out how to perform, how to lead. I was 19, turning 20 at the time, and this was like my first real experience of doing something relatively professional for what I would do in the future. It was the first time really traveling, and to a third world country, to see true poverty, to see true destruction, true racism. It's really opened my eyes to what really does exist in the world. So you add that aspect of the tour, that meaning in terms of like human relationships, and we got to interact a lot with local children and the audiences, which was amazing. After every concert, I was signing autographs. It was also the first time being overseas, really performing, like Michael Fisher on the program and having an important role. I remember this one family flew from India because they followed me on social media. They came to South Africa from India, like their whole family of like 16 people, because they wanted to see me. Everything about the South Africa tour was so special and meaningful to me. And it will probably be one of my favorite experiences for life. Throughout the entirety of my undergraduate degree, yeah, I was always pretty almost petrified. I always felt like everyone was just waiting for me to screw up. This is the first year I can say with full confidence that fear factor, it's not really there anymore. And I'm so grateful for that, because now I'm liberated to really just to live in that moment and be able to ask questions and feel comfortable to try different things, to see what works and what doesn't with these people and to get their feedback. People look at me eye to eye, you know, professionals, some who are even past their prime, who will be cemented in our, you know, history of music forever. You know, they talk to me as though I were just like them. Social media to me, it's obviously, it's the way to reach people, right? It's the way for us to connect and have an impact on people. The message that I want to send to people with my own content is it doesn't matter where you start. It doesn't matter what cards you've been dealt, what environment you grew up in, what resources you have. It's possible to go do what you want, you know, because I think as a person who grew up where I did, I shouldn't be here, really. Growing up in Williamsport as an adopted Asian in that type of environment is very isolating. I faced a lot of adversity. I got the crap beaten out of me all the time, you know, and I share it because it's defined so much of who I am. And for me, the idea that I could perhaps outwork all of that, that's what drove me a lot through my younger years. I think it's so important to be able to empathize and recognize why people behave in certain ways. My dad has this thing, whenever something happens at school, he teaches these kids, right? You know, instead of freaking out, he just tries to ask himself, what happened to you? And I think if we all lived that way, instead of trying to scrutinize others constantly, we just tried to wonder, you know, what happened to you? And to try to get inside other people's shoes, I think the world would be a far better place. I want to be known as the person who was able to outwork pain. I think life is really difficult, and there's something about people who can persevere. I just admire those people so much. You know, if you put your head down and work, you can really get away from anything. And I hope that message is something that people can see in everything I do, whether that be music, how I work with others, how I teach, how I post on social media. I really hope that people can observe the work ethic and, you know, almost not notice everything else going on.